Hi guys, it's been some time since I've needed a viewer discretion disclaimer, but this video definitely warrants one. This case contains some pretty graphic, gruesome content, so please heed this warning. The following video contains material that may be harmful or disturbing to some audiences. Viewer discretion is advised. Now let's get into it. Julie Marie Scully was born January 3rd, 1968. She was smart and beautiful, and she craved attention. But you couldn't really blame her. She was used to it. From the time she was a child, her Navajo heritage had produced striking good looks that turned heads and led to a part-time modeling career. Throughout the 1990s, Julie Scully became a local celebrity, thanks in part to her frequent appearances in Trenton, New Jersey's tabloid newspaper, the Trentonian. Known as the Trentonian's favorite page 6 model, the New Jersey native boosted the paper's lagging readership and swimwear sales, with various shots of her wearing a bikini and a smile. The Trentonian named her Girl of the Year twice. She also appeared on the TV series Hard Copy and went toe-to-toe with talk show host Maury Povich in 1992. The silver-haired journalist, known for such tabloid fare as paternity tests and backstage brawls, had called out the Trentonian for its exploitation of women. The newspaper was frequently criticized for using sex to sell copies. Julie and then boyfriend Timothy Nist weren't having it. She moved from her chair on the stage to the stage itself, striking several provocative poses in her skimpy bikini. Future husband Tim enraged the talk show host when he suggested that Povich's wife, journalist Connie Chung, had forged her own career with her good looks, along with her writing and reporting skills. The pair left the show satisfied, and Julie continued modeling swimwear. She soaked up the sun, as well as the perks that came with her popularity. By the mid-1990s, she had settled into marriage with Tim, a wealthy landscaping contractor a dozen years her senior. Baby Kathleen Scarlett, called Katie, followed in 1996. As Julie neared her 30th birthday, she was filled with a growing sense of boredom. Once known as a spirited party girl, Julie had traded her identity for that of a toddler mom and housewife. She hoped to attend college and earn an engineering degree, but she was restless and lacked motivation. Julie loved her family, but she had fallen into a funk. Her malaise eventually morphed into a state of clinical depression that required counseling and antidepressants. She tried to recapture the fun and freedom of her single life and began leaving Tim and Katie at home to party into the night. Further complicating her morose moods were the drugs and alcohol she consumed in a futile attempt to relive her glory days. In addition, she had gained approximately 30 pounds since giving birth and struggled with an unfamiliar lack of confidence. In November 1997, to cheer her up and add some adventure to their marriage, Tim booked them on a tropical Caribbean cruise. Julie was thrilled. Jetting off to paradise and away from her suburban mom playdates was just what she needed. Little did she know that in just 2 years, she would go from the photos of page 6 to the headlines of the front page. And she would not be wearing a bikini. The cruise was amazing. Tropical ports, fine dining, shopping. It was the perfect carefree getaway. While on board the Celebrity Galaxy, Julie and Tim made some new friends. Among them was a petty officer who worked in electrical maintenance on the ship. His name was George Skiadopoulos. A native of Greece, 22-year-old George cut a suave figure in his uniform and quickly won over the outgoing American. When the vacation was over, Julie and Tim returned to their daughter in their sprawling Mansfield, New Jersey home. Tim was rested and refreshed, but Julie wanted more fun in the sun. So, 3 months later, she begged Tim for another trip. It was winter in New Jersey, so the successful businessman was happy to oblige. However, he was a bit surprised when Julie insisted they take the same cruise and visit the same ports of call as on their previous vacation. It was not the restful retreat Tim had expected. Unbeknownst to him at the time, Julie and young George began a shipboard romance. By all accounts, it was a tempestuous, passionate affair, with each of them bordering on obsession. When the trip was done, Julie reluctantly returned home with her husband, but she and George were in constant communication over the spring and summer months. Tim grew suspicious, and upon opening a $900 phone bill, could no longer ignore the obvious. His wife was cheating on him. Tim was crushed and heartbroken for his young daughter. The couple tried counseling but were unable to repair their 6-year marriage. Tim had always stated that he loved Julie and wanted her to be happy. He recounted with sadness that Julie had experienced a difficult childhood, which included fighting parents, substance abuse, suicide attempts, violence, and neglect. Shortly before kindergarten, Julie was hit by a car and badly injured. Doctors introduced her to powerful painkillers, which she would turn to at various points in her life to deal with insomnia, as well as physical and emotional pain. According to her mother Julia, from whom Julie inherited her Navajo roots, their Native American genetics predisposed both of them to drug and alcohol addiction. Eventually, Julia was able to find sobriety. Sadly, her daughter was not. At her 9th birthday party, Julie, along with her younger brother and friends, witnessed her father kissing his mistress. A terrible argument between her parents ensued, and her father left the family home that very day. The scars from his abandonment haunted Julie and impacted her relationships with men. So, if only for these reasons, Julie's husband Tim would do his best to compensate for the pain and loss she had suffered in her early years. He reluctantly went along with her desire for a divorce and paid her a settlement of $600,000. Tim was less agreeable, however, when by fall of 1998, Julie announced that she was leaving the United States for Greece and was taking Katie with her. Tim stood his ground. Under no circumstances would he permit his toddler daughter to move to a foreign country to live with George Skiadopoulos. Julie's mother was particularly concerned. When George had visited New Jersey that fall, she had witnessed him attempting to strangle her daughter during an argument. Assault charges were filed, but he was permitted to return to Greece. Julie excused the violent outburst as passion and insisted to all concerned that she could take care of herself. Her friends were dumbstruck. This was not the Julie they knew, and none could comprehend her attraction to George, whom they described as balding and controlling. Witnesses attest that he never let her out of his sight, even waiting outside the bathroom door for her. Despite their pleas that she not abandon her young child to live in a foreign country with a violent man, Julie packed her bags. In December 1998, just 13 months after meeting the petty officer, Julie Scully moved to Kavala, Greece, with plans to marry George. Tim and their confused little girl remained in New Jersey. At first, everything appeared to be going well for the new couple. Julie and her young lover enjoyed sunshine and nightlife in the Greek Isles. They spent the holidays at a 4-star hotel and tried to recapture the excitement and energy they shared in the Caribbean. Soon, though, it became clear to Julie that she had made a mistake. The end of tourist season in Kavala, Greece, signals a totally different vibe, and Kavala, a port city along the Aegean Sea, is actually closer to Bulgaria than to large, bustling Greek cities. Live music was their best hope for entertainment, but the lyrics were in Greek, and Julie didn't speak the language. In addition, the weather was gloomy and cold. Just as she would have had she remained in wintry New Jersey, Julie traded her swimwear and sandals for scarves and gloves. George quit his job as a cab driver, opting instead to live off Julie's divorce settlement. He encouraged her to finance his own taxi business, but she could not be persuaded. The threat of a draft to the Greek army also loomed over the young sailor, adding additional stress. According to witnesses, the pair had no permanent residence or vehicle. They frequently stayed with George's relatives and drove rental cars. As winter temperatures in Kavala hovered around 45 degrees, Julie's princess life in paradise with her exotic prince began to lose its luster. According to several of her closest friends, a month after leaving New Jersey, she missed her daughter and considered returning home to the States to rejoin her family. George reminded her that she could visit Katie anytime she wanted, but she could barely make a phone call without him hovering. According to reports by the Trentonian, the timeline of events as 1999 kicked off went something like this. The last time Julie's loved ones were in contact with her occurred on January 6th, 3 days after her 31st birthday. Then the former model disappeared. No one could get in touch with her, so friends and family reached out to George. He was neither concerned nor cooperative. However, on January 10th, George reported Julie missing to Greek authorities. He said she had taken off to grab breakfast at a nearby McDonald's and he never saw her again. Greek investigators, feeling intense pressure from Julie's ex-husband and friends, applied even more pressure to George, their primary person of interest. George stuck to his story, at first. Then, 16 days after reporting Julie missing, the Greek sailor broke. His grisly confession would shock and horrify authorities on 2 continents. Cut to January 8, 1999. George Skiadopoulos applied for a marriage license. Later that day, he drove Julie in their rented Fiat to a deserted sort of lover's lane outside Kavala. It was there that he formally proposed to his intended, Julie Scully. She said no. According to General Pavlos Rubis of the Athens Security Police, Skiadopoulos became blinded by passion when she rejected his proposal and said she intended to move back to the United States and her family. As he had on his visit to New Jersey just months before, George grabbed Julie by the neck and strangled her. This time, she was dead. In an effort to dispose of her body, he confessed to dousing her in gasoline and several times attempting to burn it. It didn't work. With most of her body charred but otherwise intact, he drove to his grandmother's house to borrow a large suitcase. He attempted to stuff Julie's remains inside, but she wouldn't fit. So he took a saw and decapitated her. He claims he discarded the suitcase containing her body in a swamp, minus her head. On January 28th, he led investigators to the swamp, where they recovered the body. Skiadopoulos said he tossed Julie's head into the Aegean Sea, but investigators, as well as Julie's loved ones, had little hope of it being recovered. Tim Nist, grieving the loss of his ex-wife, traveled to Athens to transport Julie's body home to New Jersey for burial. He told the New York Times, "She was just a girl who wanted to be loved. No one could understand what she saw in this guy. We thought she might be going through a midlife crisis." On February 27, 1999, services were held for Julie Scully, and her body was cremated. Her ashes were scattered at the Dennisville Lake Campground in Cape May, New Jersey. It was the site of family vacations and held many fond memories for Julie. In August 1999, George Skiadopoulos was deemed sane and charged with premeditated murder. On November 27th, George's trial began in Drama, Greece. The defendant frequently broke into sobs and expressed remorse for his actions. He claimed that he fully intended to spend his life with Julie, and he flew into a jealous rage when she rejected him. He covered his ears during victim impact statements, and on December 6, 1999, he was convicted of premeditated murder and perjury for lying in his deposition. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. On September 4, 2001, a skull was discovered floating in the waters near Kavala. The skull was later identified as that of Julie Marie Scully. Tim Nist was relieved by the life sentence imposed, but stated, quote, "There's no winners in this. I can only say that justice has been served, as it has to be in civilized society, and that I can just move on with my life." In a final note, in October 2002, an appeals court reduced George Skiadopoulos' sentence from life to 23 years in prison, making him eligible for parole in just 5 years with good behavior. As of 2021, to the best of my knowledge and research, the former petty officer known as the Greek tragedy killer remains incarcerated. So that's it for today, and if you stayed through to the end, I sincerely thank you. I want to add that while I try to remain impartial when telling a victim's story, I recognize that I may receive comments from viewers who may not like Julie Scully or find her to be sympathetic. I have to concede that I don't understand or approve of most of the choices she made, especially where abandoning her daughter is concerned. It's a fine line, I know, separating the person from her actions, so viewer comments, as always, are welcomed. However, I stand by the fact that no one deserves to be murdered, so victim bashing or shaming is discouraged. Until next time, have a great day. Scary Clary out.